Hello everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to the Thursday edition of my bi-weekly behind-the-scenes DM-only livestream Crafting Icewind Dale, which I build, write, and prepare for our next session of Rime of the Frostmaiden. If you are playing characters of Valravn, Frey, Celeste, Edmund, or Thimbleweed, be gone with ye. This is not the right stream for you, but for the rest of you, welcome. There will be lots of spoilers. Stream our D&D sessions all live on YouTube every Friday. Watch all of our D&D sessions and reviews here on YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter at Rogue Watson and join our official Discord server with invite link in the description below. If you'd like to support the channel, please check out patreon.com/RogueWatson. For our campaign, we use Roll20.net, and for streaming, I use Open Broadcaster software with Streamlabs. We are still talking about Sky Tower Shelter, which my party will be heading towards this Friday, and I'm not sure how much time we'll spend in Sky Tower versus how much time we'll spend on the mission that I plan on giving them, which I'm partially drawing from the Worm Doom Hunt adventure available on the DM's Guild, although I'm kind of changing it so much it's almost unrecognizable, but still using the maps and the concept of a classic kind of monster hunting mission. And the idea is it gives the players an out for how to solve this problem. The problem is the party wants to talk to hopefully they've gotten motivated enough to talk to this other Goliath tribe and try to mediate the dispute between the two Goliath tribes in order to bring them together. And then at least Wormdoom Crag has offered their help to 10 towns to kind of help with the crisis. The problem is Sky Tower Shelter is not as nice as Wormdoom Crag. The Akhenathi are much more hostile to outsiders, more maybe xenophobic, and generally maybe more dour and maybe more serious than the sports jocks. Griffin taming is a more serious business, we'll say. So that makes things difficult for the party. They don't just get invited in, sit down for tea, and get a chance to, try to talk things out. Instead, they need to try to convince the dude at the front, which is the chieftain, to let them in. Neighborhood? Okay. Give me 1 second. Let me change the channel on my little one's programming. Alright, go PBS kids. I'm back. Sorry. So, by the way, hello Jeremy, Nate. You're all doing well. So they'll need to speak with the chief, Arn, who will essentially give them the quest. Now, I heard, if I recall, that last week, Wrecking Ball Diplomacy, that they may try and do what they did with Sunblight, which was have Edmund use disguise self to try to appear as one of the people and use that to get their way in. However, while I'm always willing to play ball with that, I think that can be very fun, they don't know anybody from Sky Tower Shelter. And in fact, it might make things much worse if he just tries to disguise himself as a Goliath that he's seen at Wormdoom Crag. And this is a small enough, this is not a big city where you can just kind of appear as a random citizen. This is a very small, tight-knit clan. There's literally only maybe 24 people here. Obviously, there's probably more than that to have a sustainable clan, but I think the chief would literally know everybody. It's very much like he would recognize everybody, and if Edmund tries to just show up as a random Goliath, I'm pretty sure he's going to see right through that. I also think these guys would be smart enough and paranoid enough that they would recognize the party for what they are, by dress and stuff, and maybe recognize that there's some spellcasters, and maybe Chief Arn will even call out and say, hey, if I say anything, to his buddies back here, say, hey, if I act weird or anything, out of the ordinary, then know that I'm being bewitched by these folks coming across. I really want to, up the, because it's one way to up the combat level for combat encounters. Obviously, you can just make stronger creatures, but how do you upgrade a social encounter for higher level players? And I think in this case, you make the characters much more paranoid and much smarter, and the NPCs, I mean, in other words, they'd be able to recognize the party, maybe not necessarily from word of mouth because it's still a very isolated clan in the mountains. But just by looking at them, they can tell these people are badasses carrying like magic weapons and all these things, and they'd know, maybe a spellcaster when they see one, or at least a couple, and be able to recognize the fact that there's something wrong going on here. So while I'm always interested in hearing what the party has planned, and I'm willing to, play ball with that and don't want to just shut things down immediately, I do want to make this more of a challenging thing rather than oh, hey, I'm your hello, fellow Goliaths, I'm here to stop in and chat with you all. Like, I don't think that's going to fly, and I'm really going to make the players work for it. And especially, I could play around with the fact that the Griffins maybe would be able to really sniff it out and determine that these are not, proper, Goliaths are not of the tribe or something. So if I really want to get into it, if they're, in other words, I'm actually having them roll persuasion or anything, then at least the Griffins would be able to tell. Because my goal is to give the players the quest and have the players go on the quest. Now, I'm sure they will try to do things to screw that up, and they could even assault this place and just fight these guys, and that could be a thing that happens, and I'm very willing to just let that happen. It would be exceedingly disappointing for me, because obviously I want to give them the much more interesting monster hunting quest versus the just go fight these Goliaths who are just essentially minding their own business. But that's the nature of D&D, and I do want to kind of give them that option if it comes to that. Now, it may be a case where a fight breaks out, but they can end the fight also, like after maybe a round or something. And it's possible the Goliaths would even maybe surrender after a while, but hopefully it would still be a nice bloody fight, and I can keep spawning in between you and me. I can keep spawning Griffins, help the Goliaths too, which could make things a lot more interesting. So I don't know, in other words, how much of this map we're going to end up using next session. It just depends on how, it might just be this section right here as we play out this social scene and determine how far they make it in. But the idea here is that these guys are very defensive. They're antagonistic. They don't want anything to do with these players or the other Goliaths. They consider, the Cold War is just on forever. Unlike maybe the Wormdoom Crags, who are kind of starting to, have bygones be bygones. But these guys are the ones that feel like they were more wronged with the others killing their Griffins, which they find a grave insult. And I could even have them tell that story, but I'm thinking his side of the story. I'm thinking I might even keep that and make it so the players have to return from the mission successfully in order to even get that story and then go forward with the mediation. There's a bunch of kids, I'm going to kill them too. And that's a great point. I think there are. Yeah, it's literally like a family tribe. So yeah, what are you going to do? But we had that conversation with at least me and Chris on the Proside chat about like heroism in general, and this party is not the most heroic I have found. Although that would definitely be crossing a line. So instead, the Goliath will give them an out, basically, and say, if they're at an impasse to where he doesn't want them to come in, but they're like, well, we still want to, how can we help you or something? Or how can you have us, trust you or something, and maybe they think an equivalent to where as well, like the others, we had to like crawl through some tunnel, do you guys have a tunnel we can crawl through or something? And they do not. Instead, he would say, hey, we have a dragon problem that we were capable of handling, where we sent a bunch of our warriors off, mounted on Griffins, is what I assume they do. Although it doesn't say that in the, well, I'm making that part up. So yeah, they set that up on the Griffins up to a, I don't know, neighboring mountain or something, because there's a dragon that's been killing our Griffins and hunting them. It's probably a young dragon, and it's not unusual to have monsters around the spine of the world, and it was kind of a, not necessarily a routine thing, but something that we expected to go fairly smoothly. And that was like a couple days ago, and they've yet to return. So if you all truly care about our people and everything, then go check up on them and either bring back bring them back, or bring back proof of their deaths, and finish the job if they didn't, or if they weren't able to finish it. And to the chieftain, that's just a win-win situation, because like either they succeed and they solve the problem that was still ongoing, or they fail and they all die, in which case they're out of this, they're no longer banging on your doorstep. So I think that's definitely something that he's going to try to be pretty forthcoming about. But even then, it would take a little bit of social back and forth between he opens up with that quest. But I certainly want to open that up with, hopefully, before things devolve into like a nasty battle or something. Because I mean, even if I start hucking spears or something, like at some point the players are going to turn it on and be like, all right, fuck it, we're going after these guys. I fear. So that will be the idea for me. Now, the players, of course, will not be given the benefit of riding on griffins. They're not going to be given that, which means I can play around with the encounter table a bit because the players are fully rested, level 9, and I need to turn this monster hunt into a worthy, challenging excursion. And that's something that I've been working on last Frostside chat as well as through the Discord, and trying to come up with, because this is all it's an adventure based on a DM's Guild adventure, but the problem is the one in the DM's Guild was like for level 5 and 6. So it was like you're fighting kobolds, and then you fight a frost giant, and then there's a white dragon, a young white dragon. I wanted to eliminate all the big monster threats because we'd already done those, and then kobolds are just way too weak for me. So I need to come up with much stronger threats that would make sense still in the context. I'm just gonna throw random monsters at the players, but still makes sense in the context of the ecosystem on the mountain that they're on. And then the story is that these Goliaths mounted on griffins made it up to the peak. They landed and then explored the cave, and then they discovered the shocking truth. Maybe they hunted down, or they didn't find the dragon because by then the dragon was dead. And the twist is that this isn't going to be a dragon hunt at all. Instead, it's going to be a Remoraz has moved into the dragon's cave, ate the dragon, and spawned a bunch of broodlings. So to answer your question, Jason, the monster is in fact inside of a cave in the mountain, but that's a good point about being in the Nautiloid. I don't think from here on out they'll be able to really have any explicit outdoor encounters to where they can jump into the Nautiloid and fight from there. I think I'm going to balance things that way, with the big exception that I do plan on having Aviatris appear and basically attack the Nautiloid and having a big climactic badass sequence, probably when they're going either to or from the Island of Solstice, since that's the big important area they need to get to by air. So that's what I plan on unleashing on them. But in terms of that, I mean, that is a concern I haven't necessarily thought about explicitly, and the players are pretty good about generally not retreating and regrouping, to get long rests or getting other benefits. But in this case, it will be like a cave system. Now, that's true. I don't have... I guess they could go back to... Well, here's the interesting thing. So you bring up a good point. Why don't they just go all the way back to the Nautiloid, hop in it, and then use that to travel to the cave? I've got two things I can do. One of them is I can make the actual path to this mountain, the Sky Tower Shelter, trickier. Although that begs the question of if they can just take the Nautiloid and land it here. But I think we talked about that on Monday, which is if they do that, then that automatically would make these Goliaths pretty damn suspicious and terrified and almost hostile if they literally drop them off right there. So maybe I would encourage the players to have to climb up. But anyway, so what I could do is force them to either make exhaustion checks or an avalanche or some kind of encounter to where it's a pain in the ass to go back to the Nautiloid, versus you wouldn't have to necessarily do that if you went toward the mountain. That's one option I could do. The other option is I make it to where the Nautiloid can only drop you so close to the destination they need to go, and then and they're still searching. Maybe there's like a blizzard's ongoing or something. To where, which is totally just DM bullshit, that he can't fly close enough to the mountain, so he has to park it down there, and then that's the closest that you can get. Yeah, snowstorm. So yeah, unfortunately now I'm gonna have to kind of twist myself into a pretzel to try and rebalance that a little bit, because my goal was to give them a fast travel system and not necessarily a we're going to constantly hop in this thing to take little short hops across any little overland encounter areas, which is what this would be. And this is the only one that I think does that. The others are all going to be straight up from here on out. We've got Lost Spire of Netheril, Revel's End, and then the Island of Solstice would be the other one, which makes me want to think maybe I need to down their Nautiloid before they get to the Island of Solstice, because that would be the other big outdoor encounter situation, versus this one is a little bit of a problem where they could hop in it and try to hop around. But I think that might be the easiest one to do, is just say, hey, this other mountain is just covered in, an ongoing snowstorm right now, and then the Nautiloid just can't get. It can get maybe somewhat close, but not like, I still want to just. I need to be able to concoct encounters for them along the way, because if they try to fight my big boss, unfortunately, it's the way D&D is balanced, unlike a JRPG. They try and fight my boss monster fight at full health, they're gonna do really, really well, versus if I make them use up some of the resources and have some encounters in between. A cooldown period between flights. That's that's a very like video game system. Like, you've got this long. It's like a mobile game. Like, your energy is depleted, and you need to wait this long before your energy goes back up. These Peritons go discovery scene where the Peritons ran off the Griffins after the Goliaths landed. Yeah, it's probably what's going to be, is either the Griffins will have been driven off or dead alongside the Goliaths. Don't mention the possible size or age. Well, they don't want to risk fighting a dragon. I think the Goliaths would probably know. I mean, they wouldn't send people out to fight like a really big dragon, and I think they would know that any dragon that first comes into their territory would be probably a pretty young dragon, and that's probably why they would say that, is we need to slay this dragon as soon as we can, because dragons just get stronger as they age. So that's what we're trying to figure out, is how to do some meaningful encounters along the way, assuming, and we're making a obviously pretty big assumption, that they actually do accept the quest to go and do this, which is basically to prove to this tribe clan that they can be trusted, and then they can, return and mediate that whole Goliath tribe thing. And then I need to be able to have some kind of reward that this, maybe either both Goliaths give them or both tribes can bestow upon the players upon actually completing this quest, because that's what players want. I know that the chieftain of Wormdoom Crag has a cloak of protection, which is a pretty solid item. Maybe it doesn't scale quite as well at this late of level, but would still be pretty useful for Frey and Celeste for sure. This is one of the maps from Wormdoom Hunt. I think this is supposed to be air. You're like up on a mountain. These are like cliffs. This could be a cave here, but I figured this is going to be a good setting. And we've talked about a lot of things. I mean, I've only mentioned Peritons specifically because Peritons are the one thing we just haven't seen or used yet that does appear in that hasn't appeared in our campaign yet, and I feel like it's kind of a cool icy mountain creature that would make sense here. But as we've mentioned with level 9, you have to use a lot of Peritons to make it a difference. So what we could do is combine this with another encounter, and that's where I'm kind of leading towards, we could have maybe some of the dead Goliaths like appear as undead or something, maybe in the middle of the fight, and that would be pretty exciting. Make the Rimmer SK bigger with extra encounters. You could avoid a random encounter. I mean, maybe that it is pretty big, and I could make it bigger, but I feel like there needs to be. It's the way D&D is balanced. Like, in a lot of video games, like, they give you a specific long rest, full heal, and then you fight the big cool boss fight. But I think in 5e, it's very challenging to do that because the players are just. I think it's just baked into the which is not necessarily something I agree with and enjoy about D&D. But that's just baked into the balances. You're supposed to be able to, be responsible about your resources for the day, and it's all about how many encounters you do for the day. And a counter can be a combat encounter. It could be just any hazard or something that requires players to make saves or, cast spells or do something that takes up their resources, and you have to manage those resources. Then by the time you get to the fight, that's what partially makes that fight more challenging, is the fact that you might have gone through some of your resources. Peritons are neat, ignored, I just said. They are pretty neat, but the problem is my players are level 9, so that's why we got to try to figure things out. I do like the fact that they would be feasting on recently dead corpses. I think that's very thematic that they would be doing. For some reason, I can't get my roll NPC thing to work. Maybe I need to restart my... let's see. API script. And sometimes... Looks like it's working. Hopefully nothing broke my script. Ah, there we go. It worked. All right, so that's a cool button that instantly rolls all the HP. This is one of those encounters where like a single fireball or something would do absolute wonders, but the party doesn't actually have any big AoE blasters. They have really strong melee attackers, and they have really good single target damage, which I guess is your melee attackers, and then your crowd control. So obviously Ballroman could like throw down a slow spell or something. God, they have so many spell slots now. You need to do so much of that. I have not given up the idea of the undead. No. Are you pro undead or anti undead? Because I'm enjoying it. In fact, I need to put some bodies on this map. If we are using this map, which I do kind of like it. Nice little mountain battle map. It's kind of a cave here. I can't actually tell what this is trying to be. I think I'm going to make this... Close this off. More wall. I guess it'd be one-way walls. This kind of cave in here. It's actually like a 3D map, isn't it? Even have dynamic lighting on this map? On. Daylight mode is not on. Well, can I change the... I can change the brightness. We lower the brightness like all the way down. How bright does that make it? How bright are you? Everyone is pro undead. 3. That's probably fine. Well, let's use Edmund. He's the best example. I feel like it's really tough because, you know, yeah, it's supposed to be permadark all the time, but like at the middle of the day, it's still supposed to be like kind of a cloudy, dusky. Like that's what Edmund sees. The problem is most of my party has dark vision, so they don't really see it as anything else. But this is what it actually looks like when you don't have dark vision. So Edmund's like the only one in the party, mainly because I just assume Frey's always got the dark vision on from her axe. Yeah, that looks actually pretty effective, lowering the global illumination brightness like that. That might be too dark. Take it up a little bit. Keep painting on this map. Yeah, I've heard people suggest Revenants, which is pretty strong, and in that case, I don't know how many you would actually want to use. Be something that, I don't know what the... Revenants have kind of a whole lore thing about them. I want to make it tricky. In terms of how they're spawned and the fact that they have like one person they're going after. We could just use like whites or even just zombies. I just think it's interesting to have undead spawn in the middle of a fight. For no real reason other than these Goliaths were just screwed, I guess. Oh, the players can actually hop up here. There's a weird thing happening here. I'm just gonna ignore it. Oh, we don't he's floating island. I'm not, for some reason when I cut off the map, that other pieces. Okay. Some big rocks. And we'll make that a big rock. That's probably good enough. Bodak time. Bodaks are real bad. I did have somebody suggest Cold Light Walkers, which obviously are in Icewind Dale, and the problem is I might have made my lore too much that they're always agents of the Frostmaiden, which is not necessarily the case. They are supposed to be created, I think, by the Frostmaiden, but it doesn't mean she's like necessarily commanding them all the time. Humanoids who died from extreme cold, but whose spirits languish in the mortal world become cold light walkers. Okay, actually, the lore doesn't even mention her. So we could have somebody literally appear just as a cold light walker versus a revenant, and that would be very thematic. Ironically, their most powerful thing is doing the cold ray, which is at range, but they actually no, never mind. They do 25 damage on average with their slam attack. So yeah, you could have a couple just appear as cold light walkers. They're CR 5 each, by the way, because they just have a fuck ton of hit points. And they can blind people automatically, which is pretty nifty. Yeah, might actually have to use these guys. I haven't used them too much either. That would be pretty nice to mix things. Like the party just thinks they're, oh, it's a bunch of corpses and they're fighting a bunch of peritons, and all of a sudden the light walkers up here. And maybe I don't know what to do with the griffins though. The Goliaths landed with their griffins. So what is the story that happened here? They landed with their griffins up top near the cave. Maybe they had to take shelter. What actually killed them? Did the Remoraz... Maybe they made it in the cave. Thinking they were hunting the dragon. I can really... because it's going to still be a twist. So they think that, okay, well, the Goliaths made it here. They were killed by the dragon. And then the peritons are just feasting on the body afterwards. And then there'll be two twists. The one twist will be, oh shit, the Goliaths are now raising up as undead cold light walkers. That's going to be a problem. And then the second twist is that, oh wait, they weren't actually killed by a dragon at all. They were killed by a goddamn Remoraz, which killed the dragon and the Goliaths. Cold light griffins. Make the griffins come back as undead too. Not a lot of interesting non-humanoid undead, are there? Well, unless you guys can give me some ideas. And is it okay if undead just kind of randomly materialize? Because I do like the cold light walker specifically as like die due to exposure. So maybe it wouldn't necessarily be all of them that come back as cold light walker, because there's probably, you know, half a dozen. But maybe I could have like 2 or 3 spawn in. So the idea is they come across, and here's the fun part. You can actually have to give the players a surprise round on the initial fight, because they can see the peritons up ahead like feasting on the bodies. So they can go hog wild, think they're kicking ass on these peritons, you know, probably killing most of them in a round. And then as they, you know, approach and get in the fight, and maybe even during that first round, or probably on the second round, then spawn the undead based on that. And then it's like, oh shit, now you've got the other fight that you didn't even know was here. We have good. Let's see. Body. I think I use the same damn body ones that are in every time. Undeads. Undeads, that's funny. Not to search through all this, it's gonna be impossible. These are actual dead body. Actually, I need to do dead body. There we go. Corpse, gore, and murder. Alright, that's... These are like... Oh yeah, I guess these are corpses. Look like ghouls, but I guess ghouls look like corpses. Commoners. That'll probably work. Yeah, that looks good enough. Blood crystal, that's specific. Still pools of blood. Cool looking. But I should have blood trails leading to and from the cave as well. Like some of them basically bled the Remoraz, and these are gory as hell. And then they maybe just died from exposure, and then that death from exposure is what's going to make them spawn into cold light walkers. Ooh, frozen bodies. That's really good. I do have Tomb of Beasts. Yeah, I actually flipped through Tomb of Beasts. You know, Jason, I was thinking about a creature I could use, not as a creature. I think this was suggested to me a while back. I wonder if it is in here. I have... I do have Cobalt. I wonder why I don't have Home of Beasts in here. Surely... got it in my compendium, right? You search for that. Game settings. Game settings. I feel like it's all on here. I don't see Tomb of Heroes. Tomb of Beasts is on here. I don't know why that's not showing up. There's a creature called the Thueli. Maybe it's Thue. Oh, it is. Man, that is a... okay, that's just a misprint. The title of it is Theulllai, but then below, in every other instance of it, is Thuellai. Anyway, it's a it's like a, I don't know, it's icy, like, what is it? It's an elemental. It's a huge elemental ice storm, and it's its own really boss fight. It's a CR10. But it's got a cool Howl of Maddening Wind, which I think would be a cool environmental disaster. So maybe you wouldn't even run this as a combat encounter, but just have this happen while the players are going up the mountain through the blizzard. You know, literally just do this to them, which is essentially the same as, I don't know if it's the confusion spell, or there's another one where you have to like roll after you fail. But in this case, it would just be if you failed, something bad's going to happen. So everybody has to make a DC 14 wisdom save, or in this case, roll 1d8 and consult the table below, but I would ignore that and just say roll 1d4, and if you roll a 1 or a 2, then you have to attack yourself, and if you roll a 3 or 4, you have to attack a random target. So essentially it just drives you mad for a second. So I'm thinking about just, yeah, so I wouldn't actually run, and maybe I'm teasing this fact that I could use it, you know, in a later encounter or something, just as an awesome, like, maybe, you know, because my players would be, I think probably tier 3 by the time they make it to the Autumn of Solstice. You could run this as like a mini boss fight or something when they get there, but I think just having it have that effect on players as a environmental hazard could be pretty effective, and I would just ignore the fact that you, mainly because if you're not in combat, then, you know, acting normal and taking your, or even doing nothing doesn't matter. Like, you need something bad to happen if you fail to save. So in that case, I would slightly alter this. In that case, I could also have just everybody be taking cold damage while they're in this thing, and just maybe, I don't know, have it last like 3 rounds or something while they're having to do this. And if they have a way of like quickly, you know, I could maybe pretend it's like a 100-foot area, and if players can get out of there at some points, then maybe they only have to make 1 or 2 of the saves. But that's an idea for a non-combat encounter that still, you know, possibly drains their energy and maybe causes them to use spells and whatever else effects they would have. Although I wonder if this counts as a... it's not a spell. It's just an ability from a creature, even though I'm not actually using the creature technically. Got a 100-foot fly distance. It's a huge elemental. And yeah, the idea is it's like a living blizzard almost. If I'm really mean, I could even do its freezing breath attack, which is like a freaking dragon's breath cone. 2d6 cold damage beginning of the turn. Spells, magical effects against cold are affected as if by a dispel magic spell. Oh, so it dispels your cold resistance? Wow. That's interesting. I could go real hog wild with all that stuff. So that is the Thwelli. I might add this as a monster just to put it on here. But not running it as an actual creature. Just as a environmental hazard. And that makes the players be more like a scary thing where they're like, oh no, how do we, we just got to either press on or retreat or something, but this isn't like a thing you can fight necessarily. DC 14 is still pretty reasonable, I think, for their level. Yeah, I think it's cool looking. Need to not have that on the map, though. Off right there. All right, so that was one idea. And then that might be enough, honestly, especially if you... I need to get a copy of Dreaded Curse, you're right. Is that on Roll20? That's on Roll20. That might be enough for a non-combat encounter, just to have that take place, because that could take, like I mentioned, that could go over the course of several rounds. I could put everyone in initiative order. Everybody has to make the save, and then you're just in this area, and how do you proceed? It's kind of all around you. I hope that doesn't confuse the players too much. It's tricky. If you put them in initiative order, they're gonna be like, okay, well, what, do we see anything? Can we attack something? I think they're gonna ask a lot of questions that I don't necessarily want to answer, versus I just want to make this a environmental thing that's constantly attacking them. So maybe if I don't put them in initiative, that makes it easier, but then I need to make sure, how do I track, like, how often they need to make the saves and things. So I don't know. I have two minds on that one. But I think that would be good for a non-combat encounter. As they scale the mountain, they get essentially attacked by this thing, even though it's not going to be a creature, just going to be an environmental effect of a really nasty blizzard storm, basically. I could even say that it imposes difficult terrain, unless they have abilities that get around that, because it's basically doing its blizzard. And but it won't move, so it'll just be that like 100-foot area or something that they can try to get out of. This says 50-foot radius sphere, such as 100 feet area. One says each target within 100 feet. So yeah, I think that works out pretty well. Now, granted, even somebody like Celeste, if she dashes, she can make it out of there with only having to make one save and just keep running forward. But she's one person, and not everybody can do that, which, I think it's perfectly fine to have some characters shine in, some traps and hazards and situations, and others not so much. That's kind of the whole deal. Howl of Maddening Wind plus Blizzard. And that will be the blizzard that the Nautiloid can't get through either. Like, if they just, like, we cannot fly anywhere near this thing, we're going to have to set it down, and, you guys are going to have to trek up the mountain from here. So that's my excuse for why they still have to encounter the damn thing. Oh, the blizzard. Copy and pasting this to my note. So once they get out of that, they will then, and that won't be a map sequence, and then they'll come to this sequence here, and they can see in front of them pretty clearly. There's going to be some bodies. I will have some blood. I think I could just make this the actual Rimmeraz cave. So it's basically right outside the cave. Yeah, I think that's fine. Back a little bit. There we go. Okay, so everybody can see, even if they don't have dark vision, but having some kind of light source helps. And the question becomes, how many Goliath bodies do I want? How many Cold Light Walkers do I want? How many Peritons do I want? All that stuff. I mean, usually under... Boy, these frozen ones don't even look like... No, they look like non-humans. Like those. Good corpses. Withered corpses. People in that same position, isn't it? Yeah. These are just naked corpses. Ooh, I like the one with the dude like crawling his way out. That's creepy. Foreshadowing. 5 foot square. Glass should be a little bit bigger, I guess. Hard to figure out how big to do bodies when you've got tokens, which are kind of approximations. Maybe do like another bloody death here. These are the ones that Peritons are actually maybe chewing their way through. Literally kind of just the carrion thing. Party will think, oh, okay, well, these guys obviously couldn't handle the dragon. They came out, and then the Peritons are feasting on them. We can make the jump on these creatures, you know, have a pretty effective surprise round. If they decide to stealth, which I will let them do that for sure. What is it? Periton's passive perception. 15, actually pretty solid. They also have advantage on perception checks, so I will definitely. And some of them are paying attention. Some of them are not. They're feasting. So I would have some of them maybe roll perception. PT of 15. Perception. Which means maybe they can only get surprise round on some of the creatures and not all of them. Let's say we've got maybe 3 of them on the ground and 3 more circling above. How fast are these guys? 60 feet flying distance, so I could, and they get their dive if they move at least 30 feet. So they could easily be 30 or 40 feet in the air, still swoop down and attack, and they do not provoke attack of opportunity. So the big thing is the players will get a pretty big advantage on the ones on the ground currently, but the ones in the air will be a nice pain in the ass. They might be factored in, I'm not sure. I may even put these on the GM layer and not even let the players see them initially, which means we should do these guys as 1, 2, 3. Oops, not 0. 1, 2. Players actually have to pay attention to even notice there's more in the air. This might also be a consequence of playing on a virtual tabletop. The players kind of assume the information that is given to them, versus I think if we were playing in a table, they would be asking me more questions like, oh, well, do I look in the air and scan for any, you know, other Peritons? Whereas I think if you're looking at this and you're seeing this in action, you're saying, okay, there's 3 on the ground, let's go after these guys. And it might not even think to, you know, look up. So that's a question of where maybe I need to look at the player's passive perception and see, like, would they notice, you know, other Peritons like circling above, or are they just lock focused on these guys? If they were lower level, I would probably give them more of a benefit, but at this level, no, probably not. Instead, they're going to have Peritons that are circling the area on the GM layer. And secretly roll initiative for them whenever the players first battle. We could still let them get the surprise round and even have them join in the next round. And then I'm thinking maybe we have 2 Cold Light Walkers that get spawned. What do we think? 2? Is that enough? 2 Cold Light Walkers. Which, at that point, the Peritons would probably fuck off. Once the Undead Walkers appear. Which I should try to time it where that would probably be the best time is like, okay, do I feel like they're going to survive another round or not? Because once the Cold Light Walkers appear, the Peritons should probably be done because they are not allied with each other whatsoever. Alright, they do get that light, don't they? Let's shed that blue light. Do that blue light? How did I do that last time? It's light color. Bad thing is, I think you don't see it if you've got nocturnal. Um, you have Nocturnal on your thing, which, see. Alright, so this guy would be here. Oh, let's roll his hit points. Yeah. Pretty meaty guys, too. 80 some hit points. I don't think I want to do more than 2. And it's a bummer that one of their big advantages is at range. They've got a really good range attack. So the players will, once again, not have to worry about that. Oh, shoot. I shouldn't have copied the other one. Forgot if you copy it after you roll the dice, then it doesn't roll the dice. So let's on another one. Gotta change its light. And then I think it'll let us roll its hit points. There we go. 85. That was so worth it. Okay, so right now, Perytons are kind of stealthy. That's true. Do they have stealth skill? They do not have a stealth skill. They have, but they're really good at perception. They got a +5 perception. They're good at not being. They're more like hawks, I guess, in that case. Kind of up above, like always looking down and searching. So I like the fact that the players could sneak up on half of them, but the other half would not be snuck up on necessarily. And in fact, would probably be able to go the same round, maybe as the surprise round. So the idea being the players and then 4, 5, and 6 would all get to go, but then 1, 2, and 3 would not get to go that first round, assuming the players do get a surprise round off. And then within a round or 2, I will have the bodies rise as, I think, Cold Light Walkers, because I think that's just, it's more flavorful, they're cool, they're an Icewind Dale creature, we haven't used them enough. It's a pretty nifty thing. As a bonus action, the Walker can target a creature in its bright light. Of course, it's going to DC 14 con save or be blinded until the start of the Walker's next turn. And it can just make it slam attacks. It's probably not going to get off its Cold Ray because everybody's going to be in melee range by then, but that's fine. It's actually technically more effective at the slam. And God, if it crits, look at all the dice it rolls. See what this thing looks like. Super rolls. 22 will hit. For 30 damage. Holy balls. That's awesome. That's a 1 attack. It just did 30 damage. 13 of which is cold. 17 bludgeoning. That, now, granted, that is almost max damage on one of them. And the second one misses. But it's +5. I mean, hell, with the player's AC, I probably only have like a 40% chance to hit or something. 3 hits, 10 misses, but still, on average, I mean, that's a 29 right there. These are fun. Fun. Players fought 1 last time by itself. This time they're going to fight 2, probably right after fighting a bunch of Perytons. Maybe I can time it where the Perytons are still like diving in and doing things, but generally, once the walkers appear, I think the Perytons would literally just use their turn to fly away and get out of here, because they would not want to fuck around with their meals turning into undead. I think 2 is probably enough. Maybe the other players would like randomly stab the other corpses. Then they would be allowed to short rest. Just because I don't have a problem with short, even though it's not really a nice short resting spot, I don't have a problem with players short resting wherever, because it's just part of the game balance. And then they can make it into the cave, where they will fight. And hopefully this is all, you know, taken some good ticks off and made it like a nice, decent excursion after that. I'm sure they'll still be quite powerful. Now we talk about this little grouping. In fact, we can put another couple bodies that on this map. Copy these 2 bodies. Take them over here. There we go. Still crawling their way out. Did I actually put dynamic lighting? I did not. Okay, I need to do that on this map also. I think we'll get to that. This map. Is the Rimmeraz layer. Honestly, you could probably get rid of the winding cave thing. Just have them start like... Although it's kind of nice to have the map transition from going that direction to this direction. There's not really a point to doing this roundabout thing. Whatever, I'm keeping it. We'll leave. Oh, this is all gonna be all natural hot springs here, which is why the Rimmeraz moved in. I don't have any explanation for the crystals. Jagged edges, whatever. Not the best painter of dynamic lighting. Click, 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 click. Also, I've been constantly telling advice to make sure not to do what I just did, which is do it all in one chunk. Whoops. We're here. Do a one-way. I think that's the way to do it. Paste what that looks like. Big old boss room. There we go, perfect. Wanted to, they could make it up there. Think that's big enough? Don't you make that dragon bigger? Funsies. And the idea here is it's 2 young Rummerazes and an adult Rummeraz. I could add more if you think we need more for level 9. It might depend on how the players are doing after these recent battles. If I feel like they're just kicking ass, then I may spawn another young Rummeraz. I think just having the 1 adult is going to be good enough. I'm also very, 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 very tempted to give it some legendary resistance, because I feel like... Although the only real bummer is the slow spell, and honestly, I don't think it cares that much about slow, because it only has 1 attack anyway. Which is the massive bite attack, and then it can swallow people. Bite attacking a creature is grappling. Takes the bite damage and is swallowed. So yeah, it only either does its bite or its swallow, which is it's already having grappled somebody with its mouth. Single mom, yep, working hard. Work few jobs and never... What's that fucking song? The heart of a tiger. She's a survivor. I'm really excited about using the Rimmeraz, though. It's got 200 hit points. I think I'm going to turn this into a nasty environment, too. Maybe it's not like lava or anything, but certainly steam, bats, layer actions should definitely come into play here, actually. Maybe with, like, you know, a good layer action would be like a boiling geysers kind of popping up out of the water. Could be a nice thing. Maybe you can do a legendary action where... I don't know, I wish they had like something that tail or something that could grab other than... Nice, you know, most creatures have multi-attack and different appendages they can use. This one literally only has the bite. I'm gonna have to get really creative when it comes to layer actions here, but for sure, like the bubbling, and I'll have to figure out what a good damage is for that. Ice stalactites, that's a good one. Yeah, just the cave. Yeah, I like that actually crashing against the the walls and like stalactites fall down and stab people. That's all really good. Really turn this into a pretty compelling, cool, classic monster hunting boss fight at the end. Oh my goodness, it's a shrieking harpy. What happened? Oh! What happened? Is it time for lunch? Yeah. Time. What are you eating? Spit it out. Oh, it's a goldfish. Alright, you can put that back in your mouth. Gross. It's a half-eaten goldfish. Cracker. Delicious. Alright, but yeah, we can talk about more about this next week, so my players will definitely not make it to the Remoraz lair, but we may make it to the Perrytown fight. I don't know. It just depends on how long that social scene lasts. So we may go all through the mountain and even make it to that battle. It really depends on how long that social scene goes with Sky Tower Shelter, or we may have another non-combat session and then maybe end when the fight starts. I don't know. We'll have to kind of play it by ear and figure out. Her hair is very amazing. I agree. It's ridiculous. But I think that is going to do it for this Thursday edition of Crafting Icewind Dale. If you enjoyed the content, please check out patreon.com/Rogue Watson. Shouts to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Thomas, Adam, Stan, William, I'm Loud, Brandon, Genocider, David, Eclectic, Roleplayer Roll, Christopher, Dig Dug, DM, Brian, and William. Gold patrons RPG Papercrafts, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, Marcus, Dead Lizard, Lion, Sam, Lumpy Spuds, Jerome, Nathan, Fast Like a Tortoise, Scott, Humanoid, Sized Sphincters, and Stephanie. Thank you all very much for your support. I will see you all for D&D tomorrow night. And I will see some of you Platinum patrons for D&D tonight. Good one.